So
do we have like a podium or?
there's a couple stools here. You can sit on this. You want to sit on the stool?
Oh, that's fine. I'm fine. I'll just stand. Oops.
Okay, you'll get two. We got a couple.
There we
stools.
go. Oh, okay. All right.
Computer screen.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. It's off now.
All right.
So we have 36 students here. There's a bunch of computers in here. So
Okay.
Jeff's in the back of the room.
Okay.
To describe what's going on. So we have Philip Cooney here, as promised. Works up at the computer den, obviously visually impaired, and we posted a couple of videos we made already. We'll post a couple more. Looks like I'm still editing. Sorry, I'm not the greatest film editor. Those 3, which are like 4 minutes total, I think it's taking me forever to edit anyway. So if we had planned it better, anyways, it's not my calling. So we'll post more as time goes on in the next couple days. But obviously Phil is here today. He's volunteered to talk a little about himself and answer any questions. And I think, according to plan, I think we're going to ask him to kind of navigate up into the hallway a couple times, or once or twice, whatever. Just go back and forth, where you guys will actually be doing your little project. And so you guys can see how somebody who's experienced, obviously, would navigate the hallway. And you can ask him about, you can make observations, ask him any questions about what you do differently, improvements you make, say your technology, things like that. So we'll turn it over to Phil and let you do whatever you want to say before they answer your questions.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, great, good response. So I think Eric's pretty much filled you in on everything here. He took all of my fire. I'm just from the Nevada Wolf shop, and I'm the computer sales manager there. And I am ready for your questions.
We have a bunch of questions. Yeah, right here.
Like, what other visual impaired aids have you tried?
Pardon me?
What other visual aids have you tried?
So what other visual aid? Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, I heard it.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So the question was, what other visual aids have I tried? Obviously, I have a cane. Now, one of the I'm trying to think. Elke, he's in computer science?
Computer science.
Yeah. Okay. So the computer science department actually. Elke Fulmer does a lot of stuff for visually impaired and disabled people. So I've tried some of the things that he and his graduate students have been doing. For instance, they had a thing that did a map of a certain portion of Scrugum engineering, and they did it by paces and stuff like that, and they actually had more than just me go through it. I think they had about 8 or 10 people go through it, eyesight impaired people go through it, and I've tried that. Otherwise, pretty much that's about it.
No dogs?
Oh, I have not tried it. The question was, did I try a dog? No, I haven't tried a dog yet. I like dogs, but thinking about having a dog that isn't always going to be able to be with me, or trying to get him out to a place where he can, do his business. There's a lot of different things that you have to consider with an animal. So far I've been able to do pretty well with a stick, but sometimes crossing streets can be difficult, especially if there's no chirp, which 99% of the street lights and intersections in Reno and Sparks don't have the chirp. And so I actually had my foot run over by a car that didn't see me going across, and I guess I was crossing against the light, but didn't know that until she gunned her engine and sped across the intersection. So, next.
Yes, here.
What's the most challenging aspect of navigating unfamiliar territory?
Are you talking inside or outside?
Anywhere.
Okay, the question was, what is the most difficult part about navigating an unfamiliar area? Outside, it's if I'm in an unfamiliar place, I don't have any landmarks, so I can't say, okay, well, this is about this far, or it's this many driveways to get to a certain spot, or something like that. Normally, if I'm outside, I don't go any place without somebody, with me, or somewhere to have tried to have gone through the path, or unless, of course, there's a lot of people around, and then I just basically, hey, where am I? Where is blah, blah, this, that, or the other thing? And a lot of people are usually very, very helpful. Matter of fact, some of them are even a little bit too helpful. So, they'll basically, they take my arm and then they want to drag me all over to it by themselves, and they go way out of their way. But even in familiar locations, they can become unfamiliar. Say, for instance, during a heavy snow, or even not so heavy. I mean, if it's just a couple of inches, all of a sudden all the paths disappear and all of my auditory cues disappear. And so about once a year after a good snow, I'll get lost in the park, as I'm going across the park from the university to the community center over there. And then it's kind of like, okay, let me get my bearings. Although the city of Reno was kind enough to supply a nice big, I don't know if you've been over to that park by the community center, but they've supplied a nice, great big photovoltaic converter over there. And so this year I was able to just find where that was and get back onto the sidewalk from there. Inside, the biggest difficulty with an unfamiliar location, or even a location where things are movable, is probably what you just saw when we came in and found the two stools. If there's something low or something small enough that I can't catch it with my cane, then I sometimes find it with my shin or my knee or a hip, or one time in particular I found it with my forehead. So, and so I wound up for a while having one of those Klingon brow ridges, and that was not a lot of fun. It required some stitches and stuff, but those are the basic things, just trying to find out where I am and then knowing what's in the area that might cause me some difficulties. Next. Okay.
When you're going down and up staircases, how do you know when they end?
That's a good question too. When I'm going up and down staircases, how do I know, well, on the downside, where do they start and where do they end? That's where the stick is. It's out in front of me about a pace and a half. And when I'm starting a staircase, if it's going down, my stick dips. And then I usually go over to the stair case, and usually there's a handrail or a wall, and I'll move over to that, and then I have my stick in front of me, and I just follow that down until I get to the bottom step, and then of course the stick will come up because, oh, there I am at the bottom. Going up, it's just sort of the reverse process where I'll find the lowest step, and then I go up the stairs, and again it disappears when I get to the top step. Now again, you have to be familiar with, I have to be familiar with the area or with the stairwell that I'm going up or down, because I don't know, you probably saw, well, you'll see in the video where we were coming up and down the stairs in between the Knowledge Center and the Joe Crowley Student Union building. And the staircases they have there, they have a handrail on the right, they have a handrail on the left, and they have a handrail in the middle. And I will sometimes find that middle part and then step up, and of course the handrail sticks out about 1.5 miles. And so, if I'm not familiar with it, I can again find the handrail with various parts of my body that are unpleasant. So, okay.
Question over in the corner? Yeah.
How much does the time of day play a factor in it, such as like casting shadows and stuff?
That's a good question too. How much does the time of day outside play in how I navigate? I'm fortunate, I'm legally blind, I'm not totally blind. And so there are times when I can actually find, where I'm going by where the sun is, if I know what time of day it is. And most of the time I do. Again, though, if it's like, for instance, a snowy day and there's sunlight all over the place because snow reflects really well, that can really mess me up. The time of day actually that I like to travel around, depending on where I'm going, for instance, if I'm crossing Pyramid Highway, I prefer to do that you know, at about 5 o'clock in the morning when everybody's still asleep. And I can actually use some of the lights, both the street lights and the traffic lights that are on the corners to tell me where I am. And for instance, I'm able to see well enough that once I get about halfway across Pyramid Highway, I can see the blinking of the walk, don't walk light, and I can aim at that so I know I'm near the corner. And another thing is that you'll probably see that too in the video that you'll watch. They have braille pads in the corners of all of the of most of the major streets, so I can pretty much tell where I'm going from there and use that to sort of angle out. So night is actually better. I always wear a reflective vest. It's sort of a yellowish green with these great big reflector tapes around it. So I sort of hope that most of the people that are driving around are paying enough attention that they can see a 6-foot guy with a 5-foot cane wearing a huge reflective vest and walking across the street.
Yeah, here.
Yeah, if we were to design something to alert you of an obstacle or obstruction, how far away would you want that to be, within an arm's reach or outside of your arm's reach?
That's a really good question. If you were to design something that would be sort of a proximity detector, right? Yes. What sort of radius would I need in order to be able to respond to it? Well, my cane, as I say, reaches out about 1.5 steps in front of me. If you could make it so it was somewhere in the neighborhood of, say, 2 meters, you know, I don't know whether you're going to put a link up for that Medusan thing.
They can find it. We didn't put a link.
Okay.
There are ones out there.
All right. Basically, on the old Star Trek, there was a woman that had a robe.
Oh, that one, the Medusa.
Yeah.
That one, yeah, we're post link, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's an old Star Trek episode that has this woman, and she has this robe that does optical lasers, and she can go to the 100th of a meter as to where somebody is in the room, and it has facial recognition and all the rest of that stuff. So she knows who she's talking to, and you'll get the joke. That's why Eric's laughing right now. You'll get the joke once you see the thing. But I would say optimally, if it could be somewhere around, say, 2.5, 3 meters, that would be perfect.
Okay. Also, if you were to be alerted of that obstruction, would you prefer a loud beep or a vibration?
That's a good question too. Would I prefer a beep or a vibration in whatever device it is that's telling me about it? I hadn't thought about that, but if it were a vibration, you know, it depends on how sneaky I'm trying to be.
Yeah.
You know, the vibration would be good if I'm trying to sneak up on somebody. If, you know, somebody's swinging around a 5-foot cane and stumbling over stuff could be sneaky. I think if there were some way maybe that you could do some sort of a stereo thing with the beep that might give me an idea as to whether it's right or left or something like that, that would be good if it was just a beep. Or if you had, you know, like that girl that's on the iPhone, what's her name, Siri? Siri, yeah. You know, if you had her, you know, she's saying, you know, obstacle left or obstacle right or something like that, or obstacle dead ahead, or oh no, you know, that type of thing. That would be really good. Yeah, too late. Yeah, that would be good.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just waiting back here, yeah.
How do you use touchscreen technology, or are you even able to use it at all?
Okay, that's a good question. How do I use touchscreen technology, or can I use it at all? I'm learning how to use an iPad. The iPad has something called VoiceOver on it, which is the same screen reading technology that the Apple computers have on them. And it's actually kind of cool. It follows my finger around and tells me what folders I'm going across and what the file names are and stuff like that. And I really significantly lost my eyesight just before the internet age got to the point where all the websites and everything else were coming up. So I've never actually been on a website. So that's going to be an experience for me, because I'm going to have to, learn how to navigate that just using touch and trying to figure out what it is that I remember from what a screen looks like. So it'll be an interesting exercise for me, and I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so if we were to design a system, how would you want it to be attached to you? Like, would you want it in cane form, or like a backpack unit or something like that?
That's a good question. What size would the unit be that would help me to get around? Depends on how big it is. I mean, if you're going to make something that's about 40 pounds, then we probably ought to put it in a backpack with sensors, you know. But when you consider that, you know, how small cameras are getting and that sort of thing, and I don't know whether you're going to use it optically or sonar or something like that, or, you know, those types of things. You know, it just depends on the size of the unit. It could clip to my belt, and then I'd be able to, you know, take it on and off. And obviously the sensors would be outside of any outerwear I might wear, like a coat or that type of thing. If it's really, really small, you know, don't put it into a cap though, okay? I don't like wearing hats. And, you know, if you put it into a cap, then have the sensors on a little beanie thing, that would be really embarrassing.
The students are like, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. No propeller beanies at all. But, you know, I mean, for instance, I wear glasses, and so I don't know whether you've looked into it at all, but there was in the Wall Street Journal not so long ago an optical system that had a camera that would feed impulses, you know, electrical impulses to an implanted sensor unit that they can implant in the back of a person's eye, and it actually does give them rudimentary vision. I want to say I thought I'd heard that Stevie Wonder had one implanted, and he actually, once he did that, he could actually see the top letter on an eye chart. Do they know who Stevie Wonder is?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. I mean, he was just back in the 60s and stuff, so, and you guys weren't here then. Okay, that's a good question. Thank you for bringing it up.
So in the videos, you're talking about how you look or search for like familiar areas.
Mm-hmm.
So with new areas, how do you kind of make that? How do you kind of map it out and make it familiar?
That's a good question. How do I map an unfamiliar area to make it familiar? Again, it depends on whether it's inside or outside. The general stuff is to first find a shore. And a shore is any change in between textures on a floor that I can detect with my cane. So for instance, you'll see in the video, and I won't go into too much about it, but for instance, you know how you have a sidewalk and then it has a curb, and the curb is maybe 8 inches, 6, 7, 8 inches wide, and there's a little seam in between the sidewalk and the curb. If I find that seam, I can follow the seam. And then as to how I get from one place to another, I just simply feel for landmarks. For instance, going around in the park, when I was first starting to navigate that, I could follow the shores until there was, say, a cross section, you know, 2 sidewalks crossed, an intersection of sidewalks, and then follow that around. And well, for instance, on my way in and out of the park, if I follow one sidewalk and then there's a storm drain, that if I'm using my stick just right, it'll go into the storm drain a little bit, and I'll find it. and then I know I'm getting ready to make my turn, and just beyond the place where I need to turn are a bunch of pine tree roots that are sort of pushing up the sidewalk a little bit, or they've cut them down a little bit, but there's a definite gradient from the roots of the pine trees, and then I know I've gone too far and I have to retrace my steps. So familiarizing myself, for me, it's a lot about landmarks. I know some people like to use steps, but I don't know, to me that seems way too complicated because, you know, am I here, am I there, and how many steps did I need to take there? Stairs I always count because it's always good to know when you've gotten to the bottom or when you've gotten to the top. Otherwise you do that thing where, you know, you take that little extra step and, you know, it doesn't look really, you know, again, it's kind of embarrassing.
If something were to happen to your cane, like it got lost or fell down a storm drain or whatever, do you have a backup plan, or would you to get home?
Good question. If something happens to my cane, I lose it or break it, do I have a backup plan? As a matter of fact, I usually carry a backpack. And I'm assuming since Jeff brought me over that he's not just going to leave me in the middle of the street with a broken cane. But, you know, usually in my backpack I have a backup cane. This cane is a little bit heavier than the one in the backpack because it's less likely to break. But the one I have in my pack is it still folds up, and I may as well show you. They fold up like this. And so it's only about that big, and it's a lot lighter than this one is, but I can always pull that one out and use it. And I have 2 or 3 more canes at home that I can get together if need be once I get home with my other cane.
Question up here in front. Yeah.
When you're walking through hallways and stuff,